The room in the Hotel de Langeac overlooks the Champs-Élysées. Through tall windows, 16-year-old Sally Hemings watches Paris spread below, a city on the verge of revolution, where aristocrats will soon lose their heads to the guillotine, where the old order is crumbling. But that violence is weeks away. Right now, on this June morning in 1789, Sally faces her own revolution, the choice that will define the next 46 years of her life.
She is pregnant. 6 weeks, maybe 7. Her monthlies stopped in May. The morning sickness started last week, that familiar nausea she remembers from watching her mother's pregnancies. Sally's hand moves to her still flat belly. Inside is Thomas Jefferson's child, the child of the man who owns her, the child of the man sitting across from her now, watching her with pale blue eyes that have been watching her differently since she arrived in Paris 2 years ago at age 14.
"You're thinking about staying," Jefferson says, not a question.
"I could," Sally answers carefully. "James says French law would protect me. Any enslaved person on French soil can petition the courts for freedom."
Her brother, James, 24, Jefferson's chef, thriving in Paris, has been saying this for weeks. "Stay here. Claim freedom. The baby will be born French and free."
Jefferson shakes his head, that dismissive gesture powerful men use when women suggest inconvenient alternatives.
"Where would you live? How would you support yourself and a child? You speak some French, but you're not fluent. You're 16 years old with no trade except lady's maid. You'd be an unwed mother in a foreign city with no resources. Is that what you want?"
He's not wrong. That's what makes this suffocating.
"I want to be free," Sally says quietly, "and I'm offering you something better." Jefferson stands, walks to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "Come back to Virginia with me. I will give you extraordinary privileges at Monticello. Your own private room. Light work, no field labor. Comfortable life. You'll want for nothing." Extraordinary privileges. The crumbs offered as feast. Sally's jaw tightens, but she stays silent. Jefferson controls her mother, Betty, her siblings, her entire family back at Monticello. He has all the power. She has none. "And the baby?" she asks. "The child will be cared for. And when there are more babies, because there will be more." Jefferson has been visiting her room several times a week for over a year. Jefferson chooses his words carefully. "All of our children will be freed at age 21. I give you my word. Your children will not remain enslaved." Sally's breath catches. This is substantial. Enslaved children remain enslaved for life under Virginia law. But Jefferson is promising freedom for her children. "In writing," Sally says. "You can't read. Then you'll read it to me. With witnesses. I want it documented." Jefferson stares at her, recalculating. He didn't expect negotiation. But Sally is Betty Hemings' daughter. Betty negotiated her own terms with John Wales, Sally's father, who kept Betty as concubine for years. Sally learned from watching. Even from powerlessness, you can extract promises. "Very well." Jefferson moves to his desk, pulls out paper. "I'll write the terms." He writes for 15 minutes, then reads aloud. "Terms agreed between Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings, June 10th, 1789, Paris. In consideration of Sally's return to Virginia and continued service. First, Sally shall have private quarters at Monticello. Second, Sally shall perform light domestic duties only, no field labor. Third, all children born to Sally shall be freed upon reaching age 21 and provided $50 and trade training. Fourth, these terms bind Thomas Jefferson and his heirs. Asterisk. It's not legally binding. No contract between master and slave can be. But it's something. Jefferson's word as a Virginia gentleman. Do you agree?" Jefferson asks. Sally looks at the paper determining her life. Freedom in Paris means poverty and loneliness. Slavery in Virginia means comfort, and family, and children, eventually freed. She chooses the imprisonment that might free her children.
I agree. When I was younger, promptly denials wanted save us.
Jefferson folds the paper, places it in his desk. We sail in October, and
Sally will return to Virginia voluntarily,
trade her freedom for promises about children not yet born. She is 16 and pregnant, making a bargain that will define the next 46 years until Jefferson's death in 1826, and beyond to her own death in 1835.
This is where Sally Hemings' story truly begins, with this negotiation in Paris. But to understand how she arrived here, we must go back to 1773, to her birth at Monticello as Jefferson's property and his wife's half-sister. But Sally Hemings is born in the last months of 1773, though no one records the exact date, because enslaved children's births don't matter enough for precision. Jefferson's farm book, where he tracks property, human and animal, notes only, Sally, daughter of Betty, born 1773, estimated. Sally will never know her exact birthday. To understand Sally, you must understand her mother, Betty Hemings. Betty was born 1735 to an enslaved African woman named Susanna and a white English sea captain. Half white, half black. When Betty was 11, she was given as wedding gift to Martha Epps, marrying John Wales, a wealthy Virginia planter. John Wales married 3 times. All 3 wives died. After the 3rd wife's death in 1761, Wales took Betty, then 26, as his concubine. Over 12 years until his death, Wales fathered 6 children with Betty while maintaining his reputation as respectable widower. 1. Robert, 1762. 2. James, 1765. 3. Thenia, 1767. 4. Critter, 1769. 5. Peter, 1770. 6. Sally, 1773. These 6 children are 3/4 white, 1/4 black. Light skin, often straight hair, could pass for white, but Virginia law declares them black and enslaved because their mother is enslaved. But John Wales also had a legitimate white daughter from his first marriage, Martha Wales, born 1748. In 1772, Martha married Thomas Jefferson. This means Sally Hemings and Martha Jefferson are half-sisters. Same father. Sally is black and enslaved. Martha is white and free. Their father owned one daughter and raised the other. When Wales dies in May 1773, his estate passes to Martha and Thomas Jefferson. The estate includes 135 enslaved people, Betty Hemings, and all her children. Sally Hemings becomes Jefferson's property at birth. She is his wife's half-sister. This incestuous tangle of slavery and family defines everything. Sally grows up at Monticello during the American Revolution. While Jefferson writes the Declaration of Independence, Sally learns to be a slave. Monticello in the 1770s is under construction. Jefferson is building his neoclassical mansion atop a small mountain, 5,000 acres worked by over 100 enslaved people growing tobacco and wheat. The Hemings family has privileged status. Betty is head housekeeper. Her children work in the main house, cooking, cleaning, serving, tending the Jefferson family. Easier physically than field work, but harder psychologically. Constant proximity to power that could destroy you. Sally's earliest memories are work. Age 4, carrying water. Age 6, sewing, sweeping. Age 8. Assigned to care for Jefferson's youngest daughter, Maria, called Polly, born 1778. Sally becomes Polly's enslaved companion. They're 5 years apart, close enough to play, but with slavery's chasm between them. Sally dresses Polly, plays with her, comforts her. To Polly, Sally is part servant, part friend. To Sally, Polly is the master's child, controlling her fate. The household centers on Martha Jefferson, Sally's half-sister, though never acknowledged. Martha is delicate, beautiful voice, accomplished musician, also frequently pregnant. Between 1772 to 1782, she has 6 children. Only 3 survive infancy. Patsy, 1772, Polly, 1778, Lucy, 1780. Sally watches Martha's pregnancies from the servant's side, sees her half-sister hemorrhaging, hears screams during labor. Childbirth is agony without anesthesia. Watches servants carry away tiny bodies. Sally learns early. Pregnancy kills women. September 1782. Sally is 9. Martha Jefferson dies at age 33 from childbirth complications, 4 months after delivering Lucy. Never recovered from hemorrhaging and infection. Jefferson grieves intensely. Stays in his room 3 weeks, pacing constantly. When he emerges, he looks 10 years older. His daughters Patsy, 10, and Polly, 4, are motherless. Baby Lucy dies within 2 years. On her deathbed, Martha made Jefferson promise never to remarry. He honored it, never legally married again for 44 remaining years. But he didn't remain celibate. Remote is the other. 2 years after Martha's death, Jefferson is appointed minister to France. Career advancement and grief escape. He leaves July 1784, taking 12-year-old Patsy and 19-year-old James Hemings as chef. Sally remains at Monticello with Betty. She's 11, hitting puberty, growing from child to young woman. Later descriptions: mighty near white in complexion, very handsome, with long hair and delicate features. This matters enormously. 3 years pass. Sally works at Monticello while Jefferson lives in Paris. Then, 1787, Jefferson sends for Polly. He misses her, wants both daughters with him. But 8-year-old Polly cannot travel alone. Jefferson writes, "Send Polly with a careful Negro woman." Asterisk. They choose 14-year-old Sally Hemings. But almost young men. May 1787. Sally and Polly board the ship Robert for 30-day Atlantic crossing. Sally has never left Virginia, never seen ocean. It's terrifying. Storms toss the ship violently. Both girls seasick, retching, crying. Captain Ramsey is kind, but it's still the longest month of Sally's life. She clings to Polly in their tiny cabin, both scared, both miserable, both wondering if they'll survive to reach land. The days blur together, gray water in every direction, the constant motion making her stomach heave even when empty. Polly crying for her father, for Monticello, for anything familiar. Sally trying to comfort an 8-year-old while she herself is 14 and terrified. Some days the sea is calm enough to walk the deck. Captain Ramsey lets them breathe fresh air, escape the suffocating cabin. Sally watches the horizon, watches for land that never comes. Week after week of nothing but water. Finally, June 26th, 1787. London. They dock and are met by servants who escort them to John and Abigail Adams's house. Abigail Adams, sharp-eyed, intelligent, married to John Adams, who will become America's second president, examines Sally and Polly with appraising gaze. Later, Abigail writes to Jefferson, "Your daughter arrived with a girl about 15 or 16.
The old nurse you expected was sick and unable to come. This girl wants more care than the child. She seems fond of Polly and appears good-natured, but quite incapable. I have not the least opinion she has been any kind of servant. Asterisk. Abigail sees Sally as incompetent, too young, too childlike to properly care for anyone. She doesn't mention Sally's appearance, though later accounts describe 14-year-old Sally as strikingly beautiful. They stay with the Adamses 2 weeks. Abigail treats Sally as barely competent child. Polly slowly warms to the Adamses, less scared now that voyage is over. Sally explores London cautiously, her first city, overwhelming after rural Virginia. July 10th, 1787. They travel to Paris, arrive at Hotel de Langeac, Jefferson's elegant townhouse. Jefferson greets Polly with tears. His daughter has grown from 5 to 8 in his absence. He barely recognizes her. Then he sees Sally, not the child servant from Monticello, a 14-year-old young woman, beautiful, developed. Something shifts in his expression. Sally sees it, but doesn't yet understand what it means. With a bidly, Jefferson enrolls both girls in Abbaye Royale de Penthamon, the convent school where Patsy has been studying. It's education for Polly, training for Sally. For the first time, Sally receives formal instruction. French language, basic reading, needlework, music appreciation. She learns to speak conversational French, though never fluently enough to read complex texts. She learns to navigate Paris, to understand French social customs, to move through a world vastly different from Virginia. Paris is revelation. Slavery is illegal in France. Any enslaved person on French soil can petition courts for freedom, and courts grant it routinely. The city is full of black people living freely, paid servants, artisans, musicians, shop owners. Moving through society without Virginia's racial terror. James Hemings has been in Paris 5 years now. He speaks perfect French, works as Jefferson's chef, earns actual wages, has learned techniques making him one of the finest chefs in the city. He tells Sally constantly, "Stay here. Claim your freedom. French law will protect you." Asterisk. But Sally is 14, in foreign country, dependent on Jefferson for everything: food, shelter, money, safety. Technically free under French law, but practically powerless to claim and survive that freedom without resources or connections. She attends convent school for several months, learns French from nuns who are kind but firm. Makes a few friends among other students, though she's always aware of being different. The American, the servant, the only black girl in classes of white daughters from wealthy families. The school is peaceful, structured. Sally has her own small bed, regular meals, lessons that occupy her mind. For a few months, she almost forgets she's enslaved. Almost feels like a regular girl, receiving education. Then Jefferson says it's time to leave the convent. Polly needs full-time maid. Sally must move into Hotel de Langeac, so tells you to get wheeled. She had with Stutzt. Maid Mile and Sally's room in the Hotel de Langeac is in servants' quarters on the top floor. Small, but private. Luxury compared to shared slave quarters at Monticello. Single bed, small window, wooden trunk for her few belongings. The household consists of Thomas Jefferson, 44, minister to France, widower, lonely. Patsy Jefferson, 15, eldest daughter, serious, at convent school most days. Polly Jefferson, 9, younger daughter, playful, needing constant care. James Hemings, 22, chef, Sally's brother, increasingly independent. Sally Hemings, 14, Polly's maid, increasingly watched by Jefferson.
Several French day servants. Sally's duties are manageable. Wake Polly at 7 a.m. Help her dress, fix her hair. Accompany her to morning lessons. Keep her entertained in afternoons. Put her to bed at night. The work is easier than plantation labor. Sally has free time to explore Paris, practice French, visit James in the kitchen. Jefferson is kind during this period. Asks about her French lessons. Gives her coins to buy treats at markets. Doesn't overwork her. Playing the benevolent master, the role he prefers. But Sally notices his attention. The way his eyes follow her across rooms. The way he finds excuses to talk to her. The way he asks her personally to bring his evening tea instead of sending French servants. She's 14. He's 44. 30-year age gap. She doesn't fully understand what this attention means yet, but enslaved girls learn early to be wary of white men's attention. Winter, 1787 to 1788. Life settles into routine. Sally cares for Polly, explores Paris, studies French. Jefferson attends diplomatic functions, writes letters, manages American interests in France. The house is calm, ordered, comfortable. Then slowly, things change. The seduction, if you can call it that when consent is impossible, begins sometime in 1788. Sally turns 15. Jefferson is 45. The exact timeline is unknown because neither ever wrote about it explicitly. But Sally's pregnancy proves they were sexually involved by early 1789, meaning it started in 1788. How does it begin? Does Jefferson force himself on her one night? Does he seduce gradually with gifts and attention? Does he make it feel like choice when it isn't? We don't know. Sally never told her story publicly. Jefferson never acknowledged the relationship. Sally's son, Madison Hemings, interviewed in 1873, said only, "My mother became Mr. Jefferson's concubine in France." That word, concubine, acknowledges sexual relationship but not how it started, whether there was violence or seduction or both. Modern historians agonize over terminology. Was it rape? A relationship? Something in between? Monticello's official position is vague. We don't know the exact dynamic. There may have been affection, coercion, or both. We present multiple perspectives. Asterisk. Here's what we know. Sally was 15, Jefferson 45. 30-year age gap. Sally was Jefferson's property, could not legally refuse. Jefferson had absolute power, could sell, punish, separate her from family. Enslaved people cannot consent to owners. Power imbalance negates real consent. French law technically freed Sally, but she lacked resources to survive independently. So, was it rape? By modern standards, absolutely. A man in his 40s having sex with his 15-year-old property cannot be anything else. By 18th century standards, Virginia didn't consider it rape for a master to have sex with his slave. That was just how things worked. Call it whatever you want. The result is the same. Sally Hemings became pregnant with Thomas Jefferson's child in early 1789, when she was 16 years old. Amar. Sally's monthlies stop in May 1789. She's missed one cycle, then two. The morning sickness starts in early June, unmistakable nausea that Betty taught her to recognize. She's pregnant. 16 years old and pregnant with Jefferson's child in Paris. Sally tells James first. Her brother is horrified, furious. "You have to stay here," he insists. "Claim freedom under French law. The baby will be born free." "And then what?" Sally asks. "I'm 16 with no skills, limited French, no money. How do I support myself and a baby?" "You'll figure it out." "We'll figure it out. But you cannot go back to Virginia. You cannot return to slavery.
Sally wants to believe him, wants to believe she could survive in Paris as free but desperately poor woman. But she's realistic enough to know how hard that would be. She considers her options. Option 1. Stay in Paris. Claim freedom under French law, likely granted. Give birth to free baby. Find work as seamstress or laundress. Live in poverty. Struggle constantly. Never see mother or siblings again. Risk Jefferson retaliating against family. Option 2. Return to Virginia. Remain enslaved. Give birth to enslaved baby. Have security, comfort, family, but no freedom, ever. Children enslaved unless Jefferson frees them. Both options are terrible. That's slavery. No good choices. Only degrees of bad. Sally decides to negotiate. If she must return to slavery, she'll extract promises first. She approaches Jefferson in early June, tells him she's pregnant. He's not surprised, clearly expected this. Asks if she plans to stay in Paris. I'm considering it, Sally says, testing him. Jefferson's expression shifts. He didn't expect defiance, thought it was settled. But now he sees. Sally might actually stay, might claim freedom, might refuse to return with him, and that's unacceptable. Jefferson has grown accustomed to Sally's presence, her availability, her body. He doesn't want to lose that, so he makes the offer. Return to Virginia, receive extraordinary privileges, all children freed at age 21. Sally negotiates the details, demands written terms, forces Jefferson to document promises that no Virginia court would enforce, but that carry moral weight. This negotiation in June 1789 is Sally's finest moment, and her tragedy. She extracts the best deal possible within impossible system. Gets freedom for her future children at cost of her own freedom, but it's still just choosing which cage to live in. June to September 1789. Paris explodes into revolution, while Sally prepares to return to slavery. July 14th, 1789. Parisians storm the Bastille. The old regime is dying violently. Aristocrats flee or face guillotines. The terror is beginning. Jefferson watches revolution from his elegant townhouse. Sympathizes intellectually with revolutionaries, but worries about violence. Decides it's time to leave France. Sally watches too. Sees freedom being seized by force in Paris streets. Wonders if enslaved people in Virginia will ever do the same. Doubts it. American Revolution didn't free slaves. Why would French Revolution help them? She's now 3 months pregnant, showing slightly. Morning sickness has mostly passed. James is devastated that she's leaving, that she chose slavery over freedom. You could have stayed, he keeps saying. You could have been free and starved, Sally answers. Freedom without resources is just a different kind of prison. James has no response to that. September 1789. They pack for departure. Jefferson, Patsy, Polly, James, Sally. 5 people traveling back to Virginia, to slavery, to life before Paris. Patsy and Polly are excited, going home after 5 years. James is resigned. He has his own deal with Jefferson, will be freed after training a replacement. Sally is grimly determined. She made her bargain. Now she'll live with it. October 1789. They board ship for America. Sally is seasick again, pregnancy making it worse. Vomits constantly during month-long crossing. Clings to the negotiated document in Jefferson's desk, the only evidence of promises made. They arrive Virginia, November 1789. Sally walks off ship back into slavery. She will never leave Virginia again for remaining 46 years of her life. She is 16 years old, pregnant,
and she has just traded her freedom for promises about children not yet born. The next 38 years will test whether Jefferson keeps those promises.
The ship docks in Norfolk, Virginia on November 23, 1789. After 30 days of Atlantic crossing, Sally vomiting constantly from pregnancy and seasickness, they finally reach America. Sally walks down the gangplank onto Virginia soil and back into slavery.
The difference between France and Virginia hits immediately. In Paris, black people walked freely, earned wages, lived without terror. In Virginia, enslaved people step off sidewalks when white people approach, keep eyes down, speak only when spoken to. Sally has been breathing free air for 2 years. Now she's property again. They travel by carriage from Norfolk to Monticello, several days' journey. Sally is 3 months pregnant now, showing enough that her mother Betty will notice immediately. She rehearses what to say. Jefferson's child. He promised to free them all at 21. I have it in writing. Sort of. Monticello appears on December 23, 1789. The mountaintop mansion Jefferson has been building for 20 years. Sally left here at age 14, returns at 16, pregnant, having traded her freedom for promises. Betty Hemings is waiting in the main house. She's 54 now, has been managing the household enslaved staff for decades. When she sees Sally climb from the carriage, sees her daughter's belly, her expression doesn't change. Betty has lived this, has been concubine to John Wales, has borne 6 children to her owner. Now her daughter is following the same path.
How far along?
Betty asks quietly that first night.
3 months.
Jefferson's?
Sally nods.
Betty exhales slowly. Did you get anything for it? Any promises? He'll free all the children at 21. It's written down. Written where anyone can see it, in his private papers. Betty's face hardens. Then it's not really written down. But it's something, more than I got. She touches Sally's face gently. You did what you had to. Now we survive it. Sally is given a room on Monticello's South Terrace, a small structure attached to the main house. The room is tiny, maybe 14 by 13 feet. 1 window, fireplace. Just enough space for a bed and small table. But it's private, as promised. Separate from the shared slave quarters where other enslaved people sleep in crowded rooms. The location is strategic. Sally's room is directly beneath Jefferson's bedroom suite. A private staircase connects the 2 floors. Jefferson can visit Sally at night without being seen by his white family or other enslaved people. The architecture facilitates secrecy. Sally unpacks her few belongings. The room will be her home for the next 36 years. The space where she'll bear Jefferson's children, where she'll wait for his nighttime visits, where she'll grow old in service to a man who writes about liberty while keeping her enslaved. The baby conceived in Paris is born around April 1790. Sally is 17. The birth happens in her small room on the South Terrace, attended by Betty and other enslaved women experienced in midwifery. Labor is agony. Sally screams through contractions that rip through her body for hours. Betty holds her hand, wipes her face, tells her to breathe, to push, to survive. Finally, the baby comes, tiny, wet, crying. A son or daughter? The records don't specify. Gender, name, nothing is documented because this is an enslaved child born to Jefferson's concubine. Jefferson notes the birth in his farm book with minimal detail. Sally delivered, child born. That's all. The baby dies within 2 years. Jefferson's farm book later notes, child of Sally, deceased. No cause of death, no funeral, no grave marker.
just erasure. Sally is 18 years old, grieving her first child, and Jefferson comes to her room 3 nights after the birth. She's still bleeding, still in pain, but he doesn't care. He's been without her for months, needs the comfort her body provides.
"Not yet," Sally whispers. "Please, I'm still recovering."
Jefferson hesitates, then leaves. But he's back a week later, and Sally learns her body is not her own. The Paris promises bought her children's eventual freedom, but her own body remains Jefferson's property. When I was younger, life at Monticello settles into routine. Jefferson is now Secretary of State under President George Washington, traveling frequently between Virginia and Philadelphia, the temporary capital. But he returns to Monticello regularly, always during periods when Sally will conceive her children, a pattern that later DNA evidence will make obvious. Sally's daily work is light, as promised. She serves as chambermaid, changing linens, tending fires, keeping Jefferson's bedroom clean, managing his wardrobe. It's easy work compared to field labor, but it keeps her constantly near Jefferson, constantly available. At night, Jefferson comes to her room. Sometimes to talk, he's lonely, misses his dead wife, finds Sally a good listener. Sometimes for sex, quick, mechanical, satisfying his needs. Sally has learned to dissociate during these visits, to float somewhere outside her body, to wait until it's over. The enslaved community at Monticello knows about Sally and Jefferson. Everyone sees him crossing to her room at night. They see her pregnancies timed to his visits. They see the light-skinned children she bears. But no one speaks of it openly, because speaking truth can get you sold or whipped. Jefferson's white family, his daughters Patsy and Polly, his son-in-law Thomas Randolph, who marries Patsy in 1790, also know. They see Sally living in the private room beneath Jefferson's bedroom. They see her special treatment, her light duties, her pregnancies. Patsy especially knows and despises it. Sally is her father's concubine and her dead mother's half-sister. It's incestuous and humiliating. But Patsy says nothing publicly because acknowledging it would shame the family. So everyone pretends not to know what everyone knows. Sally becomes pregnant again in late 1794. This time she's more terrified than excited. The first baby died. Will this one survive? Can she bear to love another child who might disappear? The baby, a son, is born around February 1795. Jefferson notes it briefly. Sally delivered of son. The child has no recorded name. He lives only weeks before dying of some unnamed disease. Infant mortality is brutal in the 18th century. Diseases that modern medicine cures easily are death sentences then. Sally is 22 years old and has buried 2 babies. She cries in her small room, muffles her sobs with a blanket so Jefferson won't hear from upstairs. Betty comes to comfort her, but there's little comfort to give. Enslaved women lose children constantly, to disease, to sale, to master's cruelty. Sally is not unique in her grief. That somehow makes it worse. Jefferson expresses brief sympathy, then moves on. He has political career to manage, nation to help shape. Dead babies are unfortunate, but not unusual. He'll have Sally pregnant again within a year. That one is young. The third pregnancy comes in 1797. Sally is 23, terrified to hope this baby might survive. She's more careful this time, avoids heavy work, eats better, prays to a God she's not sure listens to enslaved women. October 5th, 1797. A daughter is born. Harriet, they name her. Sally's first daughter. Light-skinned, with Jefferson's features and Sally's eyes. Beautiful. For 2 years, Harriet lives. Long enough for Sally to love her desperately. Long enough to play,
to laugh, to say mama. Long enough for Sally to imagine this child reaching age 21 and walking away free. Then in 1799, Harriet dies. Age 2. Disease again. Maybe whooping cough or influenza, or one of the countless illnesses that kill children then. Jefferson notes in his farm book, Harriet died. 3 words to mark the end of a life. Sally is 25 years old. 3 pregnancies. 3 dead babies. 0 living children. The Paris promises about freeing children at 21 are meaningless when the children keep dying. She spirals into depression, stops eating properly, lies in her small room staring at the ceiling. Betty brings her food, forces her to eat, tells her to survive, because what else can they do? Jefferson grows frustrated with Sally's grief. He needs her functional, available, not collapsing into despair. "You're young," he tells her. "There will be other children." As if children are replaceable. As if love works that way. But Sally is enslaved. Her grief is inconvenient. So she buries it, goes back to work, goes back to being available when Jefferson wants her. Survival requires swallowing pain. 4th pregnancy begins in late 1797. Sally is 24, pregnant again, trying not to hope because hope leads to devastation. April 1st, 1798. A son is born. Beverly Hemings. The name means nothing particular, just what Sally chooses, maybe from a book Jefferson has in his library. Beverly survives. Weeks pass, then months, and he's still alive, breathing, growing. By his first birthday, Sally finally allows herself to believe he might make it. Beverly is the first of Sally's children to survive to adulthood. He has Jefferson's thin face, narrow nose, light skin that will let him pass for white. As he grows, people remark on his resemblance to Jefferson, same bone structure, same coloring. But no one says it directly, because acknowledging it would mean acknowledging the relationship. Beverly's survival changes something in Sally. She has a living child now. A child who will turn 21 in 1819 if he survives. A child who, according to the Paris Agreement, Jefferson must free. The promises suddenly matter again. Sally becomes fiercely protective, keeps Beverly close, watches for illness, teaches him to be careful around the white family. Beverly learns early to be invisible, to not draw attention, to survive until age 21 when freedom comes. Asterisk. Front, 5th pregnancy, 1799. Another child born, another one who dies in infancy. Jefferson's farm book notes the birth and death briefly. No details survive. Sally is 26, burying another baby, wondering if she'll ever have more than one living child at a time. 6th pregnancy, 1800. A daughter is born in May, 1801. Another Harriet, named for the dead sister. Harriet II will survive to adulthood, Sally's only daughter to do so. By 1801, Sally has been pregnant 6 times in 12 years. 3 children have survived. Beverly, age 3, and Harriet, newborn. 3 have died. Sally is 28 years old and permanently exhausted. And Thomas Jefferson has just been elected President of the United States. March 4th, 1801. Jefferson is inaugurated as America's 3rd president. He defeats John Adams in the bitter election of 1800. Now he's the most powerful man in America, living in the new capital, Washington, D.C., running the country. Sally remains at Monticello. President's enslaved concubines don't live in the White House. Too scandalous. So Sally stays in Virginia with her children while Jefferson spends months in Washington managing the nation. But Jefferson returns to Monticello regularly,
during congressional recesses, holidays, whenever he can escape Washington. And Sally notices she conceives only during Jefferson's visits, never when he's away for months. The timing is too precise to be coincidence. Jefferson keeps meticulous records of his whereabouts. Later historians will compare his travel schedule to Sally's pregnancies and find perfect correlation. Sally conceives during Jefferson's Monticello visits, never during his absences. It's damning evidence of paternity. But in 1801, this pattern is just Sally's reality. Jefferson comes home, she gets pregnant, he leaves. She bears the child alone. Then he returns, and the cycle repeats. Well, if you, in September 1st, 1802, the Richmond Recorder publishes an article that explodes across America like a bomb. It is well known that the man, whom it delighteth the people to honor, keeps, and for many years past has kept, as his concubine, one of his own slaves. Her name is Sally. The name of her eldest son is Tom. His features are said to bear a striking, although sable, resemblance to those of the president himself. By this wench Sally, our president has had several children. There is not an individual in the neighborhood of Charlottesville who does not believe the story, and not a few who know it. Asterisk. James Callender, a journalist Jefferson previously supported but later abandoned, has exposed the relationship to the nation. The article names Sally specifically, describes her children, notes their resemblance to Jefferson, claims everyone in Virginia knows the truth. The scandal explodes. Federalist newspapers, Jefferson's political enemies, seize the story gleefully. Cartoons circulate showing Jefferson as a rooster pursuing a hen, captioned, "A philosophic cock." Poems mock him. That's of all the damsels on the green, on mountain or in valley, a lass so luscious ne'er was seen as Monticellian Sally. Asterisk. The mockery is vicious, racist, misogynistic. Sally is called dusky, sable, wench. The poems speculate about her body, her sexual availability, her children's parentage. She's stripped of humanity and made into punchline. Jefferson's response? Absolute silence. He never publicly acknowledges or denies the relationship, never defends Sally's honor, never addresses the allegations in any public forum. His strategy is complete silence and hoping the scandal fades. His white family closes ranks. Daughter Patsy insists her father would never do such a thing. Jefferson's political allies claim Callender is lying, that Peter Carr, Jefferson's nephew, actually fathered Sally's children, that Sally is promiscuous and can't be trusted. The enslaved community at Monticello knows the truth. The white family knows the truth. The Virginia elite knows the truth, but everyone maintains the public fiction that it's not happening. At Monticello, Sally endures the scandal by staying invisible. She doesn't respond. Enslaved people can't publish defenses or give testimony. She just keeps her head down, cares for her children, waits for the storm to pass. The scandal eventually fades from front pages, overwhelmed by other political controversies. But it never fully disappears. Whispers followed Jefferson for the rest of his life. Now, Sally becomes pregnant in 1804. By now she's 30, has been bearing Jefferson's children for 15 years. Her body is marked by pregnancies, stretch marks, looser skin, the permanent exhaustion of too many births in too few years. January 19th, 1805. A son is born, Madison Hemings, named for James Madison, Jefferson's friend and political ally. Madison will survive to adulthood and, in 1873, publish the only first-hand account of Sally's life in an interview with the Pike County Republican newspaper. Madison grows up at Monticello, knowing Jefferson is his father, but unable to say so publicly. He sees Jefferson daily, watches him interact with white grandchildren,
sees the affection Jefferson shows his legitimate family, while treating his enslaved children with distant benevolence. Years later, Madison will describe Jefferson's relationship with Sally's children. He was not in the habit of showing partiality or fatherly affection to us children. We were the only children of his by a slave woman. He was affectionate toward his white grandchildren, of whom he had 14, 12 of whom lived to manhood and womanhood. Asterisk. Madison learns early. You can be the son of the president and still be a slave. Sally's final pregnancy comes in 1808. She's 35. Jefferson is 65. Old enough that people assume he's past fathering children. But Sally becomes pregnant one last time. May 21st, 1808. Eston Hemings is born, the 8th and final child. He will survive to adulthood, eventually pass for white after Jefferson's death, change his name to Eston H. Jefferson. After Eston's birth, Sally doesn't become pregnant again. Either Jefferson stops visiting her sexually, he's 65, possibly impotent, or Sally has reached menopause, or she's found some way to prevent pregnancy. The historical record doesn't say. By 1808, Sally has been pregnant 8 times in 19 years. 3 children died young. 5 survived. Beverly, 10. Harriet II, 7. Madison, 3. Eston, newborn. And possibly one more whose records are unclear. She is 35 years old, has spent half her life bearing Jefferson's children, and will spend the next 18 years raising them, while waiting for the Paris promises to be fulfilled. Fivers. March 4th, 1809. Jefferson's second term ends. He's 65, exhausted from politics, eager to retire to Monticello permanently. He returns to Virginia, to his plantation, to Sally. For the first time in 18 years, Jefferson will be home continuously. No more months in Washington. No more separation. He and Sally will live on the same property for the next 17 years until his death. The routine that will define their final years together establishes quickly. Morning. Jefferson wakes early, drinks coffee Sally brings, reads correspondence, writes letters. Sally tends his room while he works, changing linens, managing his wardrobe, keeping space comfortable. Afternoon. Jefferson rides his horse around the plantation, inspecting crops and enslaved workers. He can barely mount the horse now without help, but once in the saddle, he's happy. Sally watches from the house, knowing these rides grow shorter as his strength fades. Evening. Jefferson dines with his white family. Daughter Patsy and her husband, Thomas Mann Randolph, and their 11 children live at Monticello now. They crowd the house, fill it with noise. Jefferson presides at dinner table, discussing politics and philosophy, while enslaved people, including Sally, serve meals. Night. After the white family retires, Jefferson sometimes comes to Sally's room. By 1809, he's too old for sex usually. Mostly he just wants to talk. About mortality, he's obsessed with death, writes constantly about it to John Adams. About money. Monticello is sinking into debt. Enslaved people will be sold when he dies. About legacy. What will history remember? Sally listens. She's listened for 30 years. She knows Jefferson better than anyone, better than his daughters, better than his political allies, better than historians who will write volumes about him. She knows his vanity, his brilliance, his self-deception that lets him write about liberty while keeping 200 people enslaved. Do you think they'll remember me well? Jefferson asks one night. He's 72, knows death is close. Sally looks at him. The man who bought her, owned her, fathered her children, promised their freedom. The man who wrote, "All men are created equal," while raping his teenage slave. They'll remember you, she says carefully. Whether well or not,
depends on what they choose to see. Whether the friend Sally's children grow into young adults during the 1810s. They occupy a strange liminal space at Monticello, enslaved but privileged. Jefferson's children, but unacknowledged. Beverly Hemings, born 1798, learns carpentry. By age 15, he's skilled craftsman, making furniture, repairing buildings. He's light-skinned enough to pass for white, has Jefferson's features, speaks with education Jefferson secretly provided. Beverly waits for age 21 and the freedom Jefferson promised. Harriet Hemings II, born 1801, learns weaving and spinning. She's beautiful, light-skinned, accomplished. Jefferson's white grandson, Thomas Jefferson Randolph, later describes her as nearly white and notes she received special treatment. Harriet also waits for 21 and freedom. Madison Hemings, born 1805, learns carpentry alongside Beverly. He's darker than his siblings, can't pass for white as easily. Madison remembers these years clearly, will later describe them in his 1873 interview. Eston Hemings, born 1808, learns violin from Jefferson himself, also learns carpentry. Like Beverly and Harriet, Eston is light-skinned enough to pass for white. All 4 surviving children receive education, illegal in Virginia for enslaved people. Jefferson teaches them reading, writing, mathematics, music. Not openly, but privately, preparing them for the freedom he's promised. Jefferson's white grandson, Thomas Jefferson Randolph, watches this favoritism with resentment. Years later, he'll write, "They were sufficiently white to pass for white. They were permitted to withdraw quietly from the plantation. It was called running away, but they were never reclaimed." Asterisk. Running away is fiction. Jefferson is fulfilling the Paris Agreement by letting them leave at age 21. April 1822. Beverly Hemings turns 21. According to the Paris promises, Jefferson must free him. But legally freeing enslaved people in Virginia is complicated, requires legislative approval, draws public attention Jefferson wants to avoid. So Jefferson uses fiction. Beverly simply walks away from Monticello in April 1822. Jefferson notes in his farm book, "Beverly ran away, 22 inches, asterisk. Ran away is the public story. Reality, Jefferson let him go, fulfilling the promise. Beverly travels north, passes for white, disappears into white society. He will marry a white woman, have white children, never reveal his black ancestry. His descendants don't know their Jefferson connection for generations." November 1822. Harriet turns 21. Same process. Jefferson gives her $50 for travel, recorded in his account book, and she runs away. Travels to Washington, D.C., then Philadelphia, passes for white, marries a white man. Like Beverly, she vanishes into whiteness, erasing her past to claim her future. Sally watches her children disappear. It's freedom, the freedom Jefferson promised, but it's also permanent loss. Beverly and Harriet can never visit, never write, never acknowledge their mother without risking exposure as black. Sally gains their freedom but loses them completely. This is the cost of the Paris bargain. Freedom for the children, but freedom that requires them to deny their mother, their history, their identity. Sally will never see Beverly or Harriet again. 2 children remain, Madison, 17, and Eston, 14. Both still too young for freedom, both waiting their turns. Jefferson's health declines through the 1820s. He's in his 70s now, suffering from arthritis, rheumatism, chronic diarrhea, can barely walk some days. Spends hours in bed while Sally tends him, bringing meals, reading aloud when his eyes fail, managing his comfort.
The financial situation worsens. Monticello is over $100,000 in debt. Jefferson has lived beyond his means for decades, and now the bills are due. When he dies, the plantation will be sold, the enslaved people auctioned to pay creditors. Sally knows what's coming. When Jefferson dies, she'll be sold unless someone intervenes. Her sons, Madison and Eston, both enslaved, will also be sold. Everything will be ripped apart. Jefferson knows it too. In his final months, he writes his will, deciding which enslaved people to free. Virginia law makes manumission difficult, but possible if the person being freed has special skills and won't become a public burden. Jefferson decides to free 5 enslaved people. 1. Madison Hemings, now 21, carpenter. 2. Eston Hemings, now 18, carpenter and musician. 3. Joe Fawcett, Sally's nephew, blacksmith. 4. Burwell Colbert, Sally's nephew, butler. 5. John Hemings, Sally's brother, carpenter. All Sally's family, all skilled tradesmen who can support themselves. Jefferson is fulfilling the Paris promises partially. Madison and Eston are freed as agreed, though Eston is 3 years short of 21. But Sally herself, not mentioned in the will. Jefferson doesn't free her. Jefferson dies at 12:50 p.m. on July 4th, 1826, exactly 50 years after the Declaration of Independence, as if he timed it for dramatic effect. He is 83 years old. Sally is 53. They have been together in some form, owner and slave, master and concubine, companions, for 53 years since Sally's birth, and 43 years since she returned from Paris. Sally is at his bedside when he dies, has been nursing him for days as he slipped in and out of consciousness. His white family is there too, daughters, grandchildren, legitimate heirs. They cry openly. Sally cannot. Enslaved people don't get to publicly grieve their owners, even when those owners were also their lovers and fathers of their children. Jefferson is buried in the Monticello Cemetery. His gravestone, which he wrote himself, mentions his authorship of Declaration of Independence and founding of University of Virginia. Doesn't mention Sally. Doesn't mention their 6 children. Doesn't mention 38 years of sexual relationship with his enslaved concubine. Sally stands at the burial with other enslaved people, watching them lower Jefferson into the ground. She has outlived him, survived him, and now she faces the consequences. She's still enslaved. Jefferson didn't free her, and his estate will be liquidated to pay debts. What happens next will determine whether Sally's final years are slavery or freedom. I've justed it. Jefferson is buried on July 4th, 1826. Within days, his executor begins cataloging the estate for liquidation. Monticello is over $100,000 in debt, equivalent to millions today. Everything must be sold to satisfy creditors: furniture, books, art, land, and 130 enslaved people. The auction is scheduled for January 15th, 1827. Enslaved families will be torn apart, sold to highest bidders across Virginia and the Deep South. Children ripped from mothers, husbands separated from wives. The Hemings family, Sally's relatives, will be scattered. Sally is legally enslaved, not freed in Jefferson's will. Technically, she should be sold with the others. She is 53 years old, no longer young or useful, but still worth something to someone who wants a house servant. But something extraordinary happens. Jefferson's daughter, Martha Jefferson Randolph, who has despised Sally for decades, who hates what Sally represents, allows Sally to go free informally, not legal freedom.
Virginia law requires manumitted enslaved people to leave the state within 12 months or be re-enslaved. Formal manumission also requires legislative approval and public documentation Martha wants to avoid. So instead, Martha simply lets Sally go, permits her to leave Monticello without reclaiming her. Informal, deniable freedom. Why? Maybe compassion. Maybe embarrassment. Selling her dead father's concubine publicly would be scandalous. Maybe a deal with Sally's freed sons, Madison and Eston. We don't know. But in August 1826, Sally Hemings walks away from Monticello and moves to Charlottesville to live with Madison and Eston. She is 53 years old, legally still enslaved but practically free, too old and insignificant for anyone to bother reclaiming her. She will live this way, in legal limbo for the final 9 years of her life. Sally rents a small house in Charlottesville with Madison and Eston. Both sons are freed by Jefferson's will, work as carpenters, support themselves and their aging mother. The house is modest, 2 rooms shared with Madison's growing family. But it's the first time Sally has lived independently, not controlled by Jefferson or any other owner. The adjustment is strange. For 53 years, Sally has been enslaved. Someone else made every decision: where she lived, what she wore, what she ate, how she spent her time. Now she's responsible for herself. It's overwhelming. Her daily routine is quiet. She wakes without a master to serve, makes her own breakfast, simple food, usually cornmeal mush or bread. Walks to the market sometimes, careful to carry her free papers, actually just a note from Martha Randolph, in case white people question her presence. Charlottesville residents know who she is. "That's Jefferson's Sally," they whisper when she passes. Some with contempt. She's a former slave who got above herself by sleeping with the president. Some with pity. She's an old woman, discarded after serving Jefferson for decades. None with respect. Sally keeps to herself. Doesn't attend church. Too many stairs. Doesn't socialize. No community of free black women to connect with. Spends days helping Madison's wife with housework, playing with grandchildren. Remembering. She thinks about Paris often. That moment in 1789 when she chose slavery over freedom. Wonders what would have happened if she'd stayed. Would she have survived? Would she have been happy? Would her children exist? The bargain she made, freedom for her children at cost of her own freedom, did work out, mostly. Beverly and Harriet are free, living as white somewhere. Madison and Eston are free, building lives. The Paris promises were kept, partially. But Sally herself never got freedom. Spent 53 years enslaved, and now has informal freedom that could be revoked any time if someone decided to challenge it. She never complains. Betty taught her, survival requires swallowing pain. Sally Hemings dies in 1835 in Charlottesville. The exact date is not recorded. Enslaved people's deaths, even former enslaved people, don't merit documentation. She is approximately 62 years old. The cause of death is unknown. Old age? Disease? The cumulative toll of 62 years of hardship? No doctor records it. No death certificate exists. No obituary appears in newspapers. Sally simply stops existing one day, and no one outside her immediate family notices or cares. Madison and Eston bury their mother quietly. They cannot afford a marked grave. Sally is buried somewhere in Charlottesville's colored cemetery, exact location unknown. Within years, no one remembers where.
the grave is lost. Sally Hemings lived 62 years. Spent 16 years enslaved before Jefferson focused on her sexually. Spent 38 years as his concubine. Spent 9 years in informal freedom after his death. Was pregnant at least 8 times. Bore at least 6 children who survived. Watched 3 babies die. Saw 2 children disappear into whiteness. Raised 2 sons to adulthood. She never told her story publicly. Never confirmed or denied her relationship with Jefferson. Never described her feelings, her hopes, her regrets. Her silence was strategic. Speaking would have destroyed her and her children. So she stayed quiet, survived, died, and was buried in an unmarked grave. For 163 years, Sally's story will be dismissed as rumor, conspiracy theory, racist fantasy. Jefferson biographers will call it impossible, unthinkable, beneath Jefferson's dignity. They will erase Sally from history, as thoroughly as her grave was erased from the cemetery. But Sally's son Madison will not stay silent. Why? March 13th, 1873. Pike County Republican, a newspaper in Waverly, Ohio, publishes an extraordinary interview. The headline, Life Among the Lowly. Number, 1 inch. The subject is Madison Hemings, age 68, living in Pike County, Ohio. For the first time, Sally Hemings' son tells his mother's story publicly. I was born at Monticello, the seat of Thomas Jefferson, 3rd President of the United States, in the year 1805, of the month of January. My mother was Sally Hemings. She was the daughter of John Wales, a Welchman. Wales was a lawyer of much note. My mother was his slave and his concubine. My father, Thomas Jefferson, was the son of a Welchman. Asterisk. Madison provides details only an insider would know. Describes Sally's room beneath Jefferson's bedroom. Explains the Paris Agreement, how Sally could have stayed in France but returned in exchange for promises about freeing her children. Names his siblings: Beverly, Harriet, himself, Eston. States clearly that Jefferson was his father. The interview is specific, detailed, consistent. My mother became Mr. Jefferson's concubine in France. When she returned to Virginia, she occupied a room in the South Terrace of Monticello. And when she retired from it, she had a room over my father's rooms. She was his housekeeper and seamstress, but she was treated by the white family as if she was one of the slaves. Asterisk. It was her duty, all her life which I can remember, up to the time of father's death, to take care of his chamber and wardrobe, look after us children, and do such light work as sewing. Asterisk. He was not in the habit of showing partiality or fatherly affection to us children. We were the only children of his by a slave woman. He was affectionate toward his white grandchildren, of whom he had 14. Asterisk. Madison describes how Beverly and Harriet were allowed to run away at age 21. Beverly left Monticello and went to Washington as a white man. He married a white woman in Maryland, and their only child, a daughter, was not known by the white folks to have any colored blood coursing in her veins. Beverly's wife's family were people in good circumstances. Asterisk. About Harriet. She thought it to her interest on going to Washington to assume the role of a white woman, and by her dress and conduct as such, I am not aware that her identity as Hemings has ever been discovered. Asterisk. The interview is published March 13th, 1873. Its explosive testimony. The son of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings speaking publicly for the first time, confirming what Virginia whispered about for decades. How do historians respond? They ignore it, dismiss it, call Madison a liar or confused.
Jefferson biographers for the next 125 years will either omit Madison's interview completely or mention it briefly as unsubstantiated claims. The establishment protects Jefferson's reputation by erasing Sally and her children from history. For over a century after Madison's interview, the historical establishment denies the Jefferson-Hemings relationship. 1940s to 1950s. Dumas Malone writes his monumental 6-volume Jefferson biography, 1948 to 1981. Dismisses the Sally Hemings story as virtually unthinkable and insists Jefferson was not psychologically or physically capable of such a relationship. Claims Jefferson's nephews, Peter and Samuel Carr, fathered Sally's children, despite zero evidence. 1960s to 1970s. As civil rights movement forces reckoning with American racism, some historians begin reconsidering, but Jefferson's defenders remain adamant. Virginius Dabney's The Jefferson Scandals, a Rebuttal, 1981. Argues passionately that Jefferson could not have been involved with Sally. 1974. Fawn Brodie publishes Thomas Jefferson, An Intimate History, the first major biography accepting the relationship as real. Other historians attack her viciously. She's accused of sensationalism, poor scholarship, projecting modern values onto the past. The establishment closes ranks against her. Through it all, Sally's black descendants, the Hemings family descended from Madison and Eston, preserve the oral history. They know Sally was their ancestor. They know Jefferson was their great-great-great-grandfather. They tell the story to their children and grandchildren, keeping truth alive, even as white historians deny it. The Jefferson establishment maintains several defenses. 1. Jefferson was too principled. A man who wrote about liberty wouldn't enslave his lover, ignoring that he enslaved 600-plus people throughout his life. 2. Sally was too ugly. Why would Jefferson choose an enslaved black woman, ignoring descriptions of Sally as beautiful and the reality that rape isn't about attraction? 3. The nephews did it. Peter and Samuel Carr fathered Sally's children. Zero evidence. Contradicts Jefferson's presence during all conceptions. 4. Madison was lying. He made it up for attention or money, ignoring the detailed specificity of his account and his having nothing to gain. 5. It's disrespectful to Jefferson's legacy. We shouldn't tarnish a founding father. Translation: protecting white male reputation matters more than truth. But in the 1990s, science finally offers a way to resolve the question definitively. November 5, 1998. Nature magazine publishes a study by geneticist Dr. Eugene Foster that changes American history forever. Foster collected DNA samples from male-line descendants of Thomas Jefferson through his uncle Field Jefferson, since Jefferson had no surviving legitimate male heirs, and male-line descendants of Sally Hemings through her son Eston. The Y chromosome is passed unchanged from father to son, making it perfect for testing paternity. The result: the Jefferson Y chromosome matches Eston Hemings' descendants. Thomas Jefferson, or a close male relative from his line, fathered at least one of Sally's children. Combined with historical evidence, Jefferson's presence at Monticello during all of Sally's conceptions, his freeing of Sally's children, Madison's, testimony, the conclusion is overwhelming. Thomas Jefferson fathered all of Sally Hemings' children. The study is careful with language. The simplest and most probable explanations are that Thomas Jefferson was the father of Eston Hemings, Jefferson, and that he was likely to have been the father of all 6 of Sally Hemings's children. Asterisk. The American historical establishment reacts with shock, denial, then reluctant acceptance, immediate denial. Some scholars insist the DNA only proves a Jefferson family member was the father, maybe nephew Peter Carr or Samuel Carr. except the CAR Y chromosome doesn't match, ruling them out completely. Technical objections. Critics note the study only tested Eston's line, not Madison's or Beverly's. True, but circumstantial evidence, conception timing, Jefferson's freeing of all Sally's children, makes it near certain Jefferson fathered them all. Gradual acceptance. By 2000, the Thomas Jefferson Foundation, which operates Monticello, issues a report. The DNA study, combined with multiple strands of historical evidence, indicates a high probability that Thomas Jefferson fathered Eston Hemings, and that he was likely the father of all 6 of Sally Hemings's children. Asterisk. The Jefferson-Randolph family descendants, Jefferson's white descendants through his daughter Martha, reject the findings. They formed the Thomas Jefferson Heritage Society to defend Jefferson's honor and continue claiming the nephews were responsible. But the weight of evidence is crushing. DNA matches Jefferson line. Conception timing matches Jefferson's Monticello visits 100%. Jefferson freed all Sally's children. Only enslaved family to receive this. Madison's 1873 testimony provides insider details. Paris Agreement explains the pattern. Sally was Jefferson's wife's half-sister. Keeping her close made sense. By 2018, the consensus is clear. Thomas Jefferson fathered at least 6 children with Sally Hemings over a 38-year period. But consensus doesn't mean America has reckoned with what this means. Asterisk. Monticello's reckoning. After the 1998 DNA study, Monticello, Jefferson's home, now a museum, must decide how to present Sally's story. For 174 years, Monticello tours barely mentioned enslaved people. Now they must integrate Sally Hemings into the narrative. 2000. First acknowledgement. Tour guides begin mentioning Sally, though briefly and euphemistically. Jefferson may have had a relationship with an enslaved woman named Sally Hemings. The passive voice and hedging reveal discomfort. 2012. Slavery at Monticello tour debuts. Focuses on enslaved community. Discusses Sally more openly but still carefully. White visitors often angry. Why do you have to talk about this? Can't we just appreciate the architecture? 2017. Archaeologists excavate Sally's room on the South Terrace. They find the 14 by 13 foot space where she lived 36 years. Artifacts emerge. Buttons, pottery shards, the brick fireplace. The room is preserved, open to tours. 2018. Monticello opens major exhibition, The Life of Sally Hemings. Visitors learn about her birth, childhood, Paris years, children, death. The exhibit struggles with language. Was it rape, a relationship, coercion? Monticello presents multiple perspectives, unwilling to impose one interpretation. The gift shop now sells books about Sally. Her room is a pilgrimage site for black visitors honoring an ancestor. White visitors take selfies, many seemingly oblivious to the horror. Tour guides report common reactions. Black visitors often cry when seeing Sally's tiny room. This is where she lived? This is where she raised his children while enslaved? It's personal. Many black Americans have enslaved ancestors who endured similar. White visitors range from, "I never knew this," to, "This is so sad," to, "Are you sure it's true?" to outright anger at attacking Jefferson. Descendants, both black, Hemings family, and white, Randolph family, visit. Some are reconciled, accepting the complex truth. Others refuse to acknowledge the connection. Asterisk. June 2018. The Family Reunion. June 16, 2018. Monticello hosts a historic reunion. Descendants of Thomas Jefferson, both white and black, invited together officially for the first time. Over 100 descendants attend.
mingle on Monticello's lawn, black and white cousins meeting for the first time. Some white descendants refuse to attend, unable to accept black relatives. Some black descendants refuse, unwilling to honor a rapist. Those who come share a strange experience. Standing together where their ancestors lived, some enslaved, some enslaving. Looking at Sally's tiny room, at Jefferson's grand bedroom above it. Reckoning with DNA tying them together, and history ripping them apart. Shannon Lanier, black descendant through Sally Hemings, says, Sally Hemings is my sixth great-grandmother. Thomas Jefferson is my sixth great-grandfather. He owned her. He raped her. That's my history. I don't choose it, but I tell it truthfully. Asterisk. Julia Jefferson Westerinen, white descendant through Jefferson's nephew, struggles. It's hard to accept. We were taught Thomas Jefferson was a great man. Learning about Sally changes that. But it's the truth. Asterisk. The descendants don't reach consensus. Some emphasize Jefferson's hypocrisy. Some emphasize Sally's survival. Some want Jefferson's legacy destroyed. Some want it complicated but preserved. All agree, Sally Hemings deserves to be remembered. Roma was young there. As of 2025, 200 years after Sally Hemings' birth, America is still reckoning with her story. In education, high school textbooks now mention Sally Hemings, usually briefly, often euphemistically, had a relationship with, but she's there. A PUS history curriculum includes the Jefferson-Hemings relationship. Students learn that Jefferson wrote, "All men are created equal," while enslaving his own children. In culture, plays, books, documentaries explore Sally's life. Some portray her as victim, some as agent, most as both. The 2017 play, Sally and Tom, imagines their conversations. Annette Gordon reads The Hemingses of Monticello, 2008, wins Pulitzer Prize for History. At Monticello, Sally's room is now centerpiece of slavery tours. Over 400,000 visitors annually see where she lived. Plaques explain. Sally Hemings, 1773 to 1835, was born enslaved at Monticello. She bore at least 6 children to Thomas Jefferson. She was never freed. In academic debate, scholars still argue over language. Was Sally raped or in a relationship? Monticello's position. Both can be true. She was raped by the system. Within that system, there may have been moments of genuine connection. But genuine connection doesn't negate the fundamental violence of slavery. Among descendants, DNA has connected families separated by slavery and racism. Some embrace the connection, attending reunions, sharing stories. Others reject it, unable to reconcile family pride with ancestral rape. In public memory, Thomas Jefferson remains on Mount Rushmore, on the nickel, in textbooks as Founding Father. But now, with asterisk, also owned and raped his enslaved half-sister-in-law and father her 6 children. America is learning to hold both truths. Jefferson was brilliant and terrible. Sally was victimized and strategic. History is more complicated than heroes and villains. You know, when we Sally Hemings died in 1835 in an unmarked grave. Left no letters, no diaries, no first-hand account. Her voice was silenced by slavery, by Jefferson, by 163 years of historical denial. But she left something. Children who survived. Descendants who preserved the truth. DNA that finally proved what black families always knew.
and questions that America is still trying to answer. How do we remember a founding father who was also a rapist? How do we honor an enslaved woman who had no good choices, but made the best bargains she could? How do we reconcile the words, "all men are created equal," with 38 years of sexual slavery? How do we teach children that heroes can be monsters, and monsters can write beautiful things about freedom? Sally Hemings was born in 1773 as Thomas Jefferson's property. Spent 16 years enslaved before becoming his concubine. Spent 38 years bearing his children and sharing his bed. Spent 9 years in informal freedom after his death. Died in 1835 in an unmarked grave that is lost. She negotiated freedom for her children at cost of her own. She survived by staying silent. She was buried and forgotten. And then, 163 years later, DNA resurrected her story and forced America to finally say her name. Sally Hemings, 1773 to 1835. Enslaved concubine to Thomas Jefferson. Mother to 6 children. Woman who negotiated what she could and survived what she couldn't change. Say her name. Remember her. Because America spent 2 centuries trying to forget her, and she deserves better than erasure.